This is so disrespectful. It's so condescending, quite frankly, from two individuals who I think should know better. I respect Larry McReynolds. I respect Danielle Trotta. I can't really say I respect this. First of all, whichever driver they were referring to, it really doesn't matter, right? I mean, we all know. And Larry said, guy that hasn't won a championship. Who's been the most vocal among drivers who haven't won a championship? We could already narrow it down to 2 to 3. If you're going to be bold enough to throw this kind of discourse out there, at least tell us, make it clear who you're talking about rather than trying to walk it back here with comments a day later based on how social media reacts to it. That was incredibly frustrating from my perspective. I don't think you win people over by saying, let's move forward, not backward. Let's pray to God that NASCAR doesn't listen to these people. You attack the argument. You don't attack the individual. You don't take a shot at them and say, oh, they never won a championship. And thank you to Jeff Gluck for pointing out that the fact that Mark Martin didn't win a championship, he did everything but, I guess, aside from winning a Daytona 500 as well, and he came very close to doing that also. He finished second 5 times, one of which wasn't even under a full season format. It was under the chase format in 2009. The fact that he wants to go back to a format or wants fans to get what they want in going back to a format where he didn't win a championship only increases his credibility when it comes to this subject. We've heard Joey Logano talk countless times. Who in their right mind wants to go back to how we used to do things? The guy's won 3 championships under this format. What do you expect him to say? So the fact that Mark is saying this as somebody who hasn't won a championship, I think only strengthens his case rather than weakening it. And then for the discourse to continue here today, I mean, people know where I stand on the issue of playoffs. And again, I think Mark brilliantly said it in that clip there as well. Why do we call it playoffs? You don't play racing, you race. Why do we call it overtime? This isn't a timed sport. It's so incredibly frustrating, but to see it continue today, and Ryan Blaney, another champion of the sport, to get on SiriusXM and talk about how, under the old format, under a full season format, you could have a guy win 8 races, but not win the championship. Have we forgotten that just 5 years ago, Kevin Harvick won 9 races and didn't win the championship? Have we forgotten that hypothetically and theoretically, it would never happen because there's so much parity in the sport, but you could, in theory, win 35 races in a season under this format and then finish 4th in the 36th and not even finish top 3 in the championship? Have we forgotten about that? Have we forgotten that Matt Crafton won a championship in the Truck Series under this format without winning a single race at any point in the season? You want to talk about a format that emphasizes winning. Winning, you're in. Winning is what matters above all else. And yet you have drivers that have such dominant seasons. I mean, it could have happened to Kyle Larson. He had 9 wins going into the finale in 2021. He thankfully got his 10th win and won the championship that he thoroughly deserved. But had his pit crew not stepped up in the clutch, we could have been talking about him the same way that we talk about Kevin Harvick. So, I mean, again, I would love to have a conversation with whether it's Danielle Trotta or Larry McReynolds or anybody on social media who likes the format that we have, who defends the format that we have. Could you give me a defense of the format that you like rather than shooting down people who don't? And I'm reminded of what Pete Pistone said a couple years ago when people say we shouldn't have a playoff in NASCAR. You need to get to some sort of group to get over yourself because we're not going backwards. Come on, man. Like, can you at least tell me why you like what we have now? Tell me what you appreciate. Tell me why you think it's better, and I'll listen to you. I don't think you're going to win me over. It's been over a decade at this point, and I'm still convinced that the Latford system is the way to go, or at least some sort of full season championship format. Maybe you give a higher emphasis for wins over second places if you want to emphasize winning a little bit more. That's fine. But the champion, in my view, should be who was the best driver over the course of a season, not who got hot at the right time, who survived a quintuple overtime finish at Nashville and then got fortunate when Alex Bowman got disqualified following the final round of 12 race to get back into the round of 8 and then won the 2 races he needed to win the championship, even though he only had a 17.1 average finish. I'm not calling Joey Logano an undeserving champion for last year. I'm just saying when you look at the season that he had, all power to him for manipulating the system to his advantage. The rules are the same for everybody. I get all that. But you cannot look at the season that he had and say that he was even a top 5 driver all throughout the season, let alone the best driver who 50 years from now, when people look back in the history books and they say, oh, Joey Logano, 2024, he must have been the driver of the year, the one that everybody had to beat week in and week out. And maybe they look further down the page and they see he only had a 17.1 average finish, but you're not going to see that at first glance. So that's what I want from my champions. That's the argument that I'm making. And when people get on, and I don't want to throw too much shade at SiriusXM here, but it does seem like they are consistently, and their hosts are consistently the source of these conversations here. When we hear people say these sorts of things, it does nothing to win my side over. Why is so much of the argument attacking the people on the other side rather than the arguments on the other side? And the last point I'll just make about this, I thought it was very ironic, the last thing that Danielle Trotta said, let's move forward, not backwards. Have you ever taken a look at the television ratings chart from 2004 to the present day, the last 20 years or so? Have you noticed the direction that the chart has continued to move in year after year? Maybe it's been stable, here in the 2020s. Maybe it's trending back up a little bit. But you want to talk about taking the sport backwards. Again, just the TV ratings, the attendance, the amount of grandstands that we've torn down, the fact that we continue to look back at races from 15, 20 years ago and see where we used to be and how can we get back to where we used to be. And we don't link the two together. We don't see the common denominator. Do you know more people watched the season finale in 2003 when Matt Kenseth had already clinched for championship? I think all he had to do was take the green flag. Maybe he didn't even have to do that. We hear all the time people say, oh, no, nobody's going to watch if the championship's already decided. It's boring. You just have to go through the motions, everything. More people watch that race than watch the Daytona 500 here in the 2020s. I just want everybody to think about that for a second. You constantly say nobody's going to watch, and yet you had more people watching back when that was the format than are watching the format now. And to Mark's point about trying to bring in the casual racing fan doesn't seem interested in what we're doing. The ratings haven't gone up. If anything, they've gone the opposite direction, and you've had the opposite effect. Instead of bringing those casual fans, those stick and ball sports fans in, you make the comparisons to the 2007 Patriots that... it's a complete apples and oranges comparison to make. Those fans haven't been coming in, and the fans that have been watching for decades have seemed to be pushed out. So, again, it is so incredibly frustrating that we cannot, and I said this on this very show last November when all the Martinsville insanity was going down. The biggest defense of the playoff system, to me, appears to be complaining about other people complaining about the system. And I just wish that for once we could actually have a conversation about the strengths of each of these formats, the strengths of each of these sides of the argument, rather than just completely dismissing people like myself who feel very strongly that we should determine our champions over the course of a full season. And count Mark Martin among that, I guess, count Denny Hamlin among that, whoever this driver was that they were referring to. And I know, again, they've tried to walk back some of their comments, but also at the same time have accused the fans of making assumptions. And it's so incredibly frustrating. And again, I feel like I'm rambling here. I'm talking in circles. I'm going to let Matt get a word in here so I can take a breath, take a sip of my Baja Blast and try to calm down a little bit. But I am so tired of not even being given the chance to be heard out, because if you like how we used to do it, then you're stuck in the past and you don't want to keep the sport moving forward. I think it is incredibly condescending and incredibly disrespectful, especially to somebody of Mark Martin or Denny Hamlin's caliber, somebody who's in the Hall of Fame and somebody who, unless they hold a grudge like they have for Smokey Yunick all these years with how this lawsuit's going out, Denny Hamlin's going to be in the Hall of Fame the second he's eligible as well. So again, I just, the constant putting down of people on this side of the argument is just, I'm over it. I'm over it. That's all I have to say.